Picture this: 4 hours into a session, and for most of the night, your poker has been solid. Good folds, sensible calls, plenty of patience. Then one hand lands badly. You read the range, make the value bet, get called, and watch the river produce the one card you really did not want to see. Suddenly, they have the nuts and your stack is gone. Nothing was wrong with the decision. The read made sense. So did the bet. The river was just brutal. But a few minutes later, the game feels different. Marginal hands start looking playable. A thin raise seems tempting. Part of your mind can see the shift happening, almost in real time, but that awareness doesn't stop it. By the end of the night, the same questions are back. Why does this keep happening? Why can't I stay disciplined when it matters? If that sounds familiar, stay with me, because the problem probably isn't a lack of discipline. In fact, discipline may be the wrong tool for this particular job. Once that clicks, there's a much more useful way to understand tilt and work with it. Most players begin with a simple story. I lost control. Next time I need to be stronger. I need to concentrate harder, keep my emotions down, and refuse to tilt. Sounds reasonable, right? It also puts all the blame on character and all the hope on willpower. That's where the story goes wrong. Think about the timing. A bad beat happens and the body reacts almost instantly. Heat in the chest, tightness in the jaw, a rush of anger, fear, or urgency. Reasoning arrives a moment later and tries to clean things up. By then, the reaction is already moving. Conscious thought is playing catch up. There is another problem. Hours at a poker table demand constant attention and restraint. Every fold, every calculation, every moment spent waiting uses a little mental energy. Late in a session, when the pressure is accumulated, that effort is harder to sustain. Relying on willpower alone means depending on it at the exact point when it is under the greatest strain. Then comes the biggest mismatch of all. Willpower is useful for deliberate choices. An emotional surge isn't one of them. Nobody decides to feel that first flash of anger after a cooler. You might hide it for a while or force yourself to sit still, but suppression doesn't change the reaction itself. It simply gives the conscious mind another job to manage. So the familiar cycle makes perfect sense. A player promises to do better, holds everything together for a while, hits a genuine trigger, and watches the old response take over. Afterwards, it feels personal. It feels like failure. Structurally, though, the method never matched the problem. A conscious tool was trying to overpower an automatic response. What would fit better? Start with where the reaction actually lives. Tilt, fear, anger, and shutdown do not begin as carefully reasoned conclusions. They come from the fast, associative part of the nervous system. This is the part that learns through repetition, emotion, and experience. It links losing money with danger, mistakes with shame, or uncertainty with fear, then runs those links automatically when something similar happens again. That system is not the enemy. It is doing what it learned to do. Fast learning is incredibly useful in ordinary life because it lets us respond without analyzing every detail from scratch. Poker creates trouble when normal parts of the game, like variance, uncertainty, and loss, get coded as threats. Fighting that response head on usually creates more friction. A better approach is to work with the pattern itself, in language the nervous system understands. This is where NLP can be practical. Forget the grand marketing claims for a moment. At its most useful, NLP pays attention to how an experience is put together, the body sensation, the mental picture, the inner voice, and the sequence connecting them. Change that sequence, and the reaction has a chance to unfold differently. Hypnotherapy works at a deeper emotional level where some of those learned associations are stored. NLP is especially useful closer to the surface, right where the reaction starts. One approach can help update the underlying pattern. The other offers ways to interrupt it during a live session. They can complement each other. For now, let us stay with the in-the-moment work. There are 4 tools worth knowing. The first is creating space between a trigger and a response. For many players, the two seem fused. The bad beat happens, then tilt appears so quickly that both feel like one event. Slow the sequence down though, and there are two separate things. Something happened, and the nervous system produced a learned response. That link was built over time, which means it can also be loosened. The goal is not to become a robot who feels nothing. It is to notice the first signal early enough to create a small gap. Maybe the jaw tightens. Maybe breathing gets shallow. Maybe the mind starts replaying the hand. Catching that first cue creates a moment in which a different move becomes possible. That tiny gap matters more than it sounds. Strong emotional control does not mean never being triggered. It means having enough room to respond instead of being carried straight into the next bad decision. The second tool is a pattern interrupt. This is simply a rehearsed action that breaks the usual sequence before it gathers momentum. Tilt tends to feed itself. One angry thought leads to another. The body becomes more activated, attention narrows, and every new hand gets interpreted through the same emotional filter. Wait until the reaction is fully developed and the interrupt has a much harder job. Use it at the first sign, and the whole chain can lose momentum. A useful interrupt might be physical. Change posture, drop the shoulders, slow the exhale, take the hands away from the controls for a few seconds. It can also be mental, such as naming the state plainly. Irritation is here, and no decision is required this second. The exact action matters less than practicing it beforehand and using it early. An interrupt does not erase the deeper association. What it can do is protect the next decision. Sometimes that is exactly what a player needs in the middle of a session. The third tool is anchoring a settled state. Our nervous systems build associations constantly. A song can bring back an entire summer. Walking into a particular room can change the mood before a word is spoken. A phrase, a smell, or a small gesture can call up a feeling because the two became linked through experience. Tilt often works through the same mechanism. A cue and an emotional state have become connected. Anchoring uses that process deliberately, pairing a chosen cue with the calm, clear state in which good poker becomes easier. In practice, begin away from the table. Recall a time when the mind felt settled and alert. Let the memory become specific. Notice the breathing, posture, focus, and physical sense of steadiness. As that state strengthens, pair it with a small, repeatable gesture. With enough rehearsal, the gesture becomes a prompt that helps bring the state back. Then it is available after a cooler, in the middle of a difficult stretch, or just as an old reaction begins to rise. It is not magic, and it improves with repetition. The point is to make calm more familiar and easier to access when the pressure is real. The fourth tool is reframing. Is not pretending everything is wonderful. It means noticing the meaning attached to an event and checking whether that meaning is useful or even accurate. Take a bad beat. Framed as an injustice, it naturally produces anger. Framed as evidence that the money went in with the best of it, the same hand carries a different emotional weight. The cards did not change. The meaning did. Good reframes stay grounded in reality. They are not slogans pasted over frustration. A useful frame might be, my job ends with the quality of the decision. The deck handles the result. Rehearsed often enough, that perspective can become the ordinary way of seeing the hand, rather than something recited in a crisis. There is an important limit to all of this. In the moment, tools can improve control quite quickly, but control and resolution are not identical. A player may become excellent at interrupting tilt and still feel its pull every time. That happens when the original association remains emotionally charged. The surface strategy is holding the line and doing it well, but holding the line still takes effort. Deeper work asks why this particular loss feels so threatening. Why does a mistake carry shame? Why does uncertainty feel intolerable? Those questions point beneath the visible reaction toward the emotional learning that gives it force. This is why NLP and hypnotherapy can work well together. NLP offers practical control in the moment when the next poker decision needs protection. Hypnotherapy can work with the deeper emotional memory that keeps loading the trigger. One deals with the live pattern, the other explores what keeps powering it. The final part of this series goes into that deeper layer. For now, keep one correction in mind. Struggling with tilt does not prove a lack of discipline. More often, it shows that a conscious strategy has been aimed at an automatic problem. Once the fight with willpower eases, the work becomes clearer. Notice the trigger, create a gap, interrupt the old sequence, bring back a settled state, check the meaning being attached to the hand. Those are learnable moves, and each one gives the nervous system a different experience to build on. If you would like the full written piece, the link is in the description. And if this is work you want to explore more deeply, Luma Counselling works with poker players at the point where conscious strategy and automatic emotional patterns meet. There is a link below for that as well.